All right, welcome back to Politically Homeless. My name is Dave, and one of the best things I've read in recent days, and it combines a couple of different things from a religious perspective and from a geopolitical perspective. I know this might be a little tedious, folks, but this is the kind of meat and potatoes that I think people need. So here we go. From LouRockwell.com, which is a great website, anti-state, anti-war, pro-market. Scott Ritter, the Zionist experiment is finished, and this is written by Pastor Chuck Baldwin, who is one of America's better truth tellers. All right. From a strictly theological perspective, a theological perspective that is founded upon Christ's new covenant and not the false doctrines of premillennial dispensationalism. If you don't understand dispensationalism, you really need to figure that out. You need to kind of do some research, where it came from, who funded it, who financed it, why it's so dominant now. And it's definitely something, by the way, that was not part of the church fathers' rhetoric at all. It's a relatively new thing. They go on to say, it is an absolute certainty that Zionism, Christian or Jewish, is a devilish counterfeit designed to first deceive and then to enslave the minds and hearts of evangelical Christians across America, and then with their fanatical support capture the hearts and minds of war makers in America's Congress as a means of exporting perpetual death and destruction worldwide. I would say this: if you're pro-life and you're for this stuff, then you're really not very pro-life. Okay? Just putting it out there. Remember that Jesus emphatically proclaimed that Satan, the devil, is the master murderer and liar in John 8:44. And war takes murder to its most prolific level. Again, this is going to take a while for me to get through, but this is pretty important. This is pretty important. Over the past 76 years, Zionism has accomplished all of its intended goals. It has turned evangelical pastors and Christians away from Christ's new covenant to the point that most evangelicals know almost nothing about Christ's new covenant. It has turned political conservatives into rabid, almost maniacal warmongers. He says here, be sure to watch my message this Sunday, June 23rd, which was yesterday. So that's something I'm probably going to go look into. It has opened the floodgates of moral debauchery into America's entertainment industries and our public school systems. It has opened a tidal wave of mass illegal criminal immigration into our country, allowing an unfettered alien army of tens of millions of military age single men to enter, live, organize, and proliferate into a very clear and present danger to our safety and even to our very existence as a nation. Again, from a new covenant perspective, if God still has a plan for Christian America and has not determined to allow America to completely implode from within, which is a real possibility, or explode in a global nuclear war, equally possible, which the U.S. is agitating, heaven itself must deal, heaven, he says, must deal with the moral and spiritual blight of Zionism, because Christian America is largely enslaved by it and totally inept to resist its demonic machinations. Contrary to the assertions of Schofield futurists such as John Hagee, Robert Jeffress, Greg Laurie, John MacArthur, and many more, modern Israel is not, here's the punchline here, modern Israel is not a resurrected biblical Israel or a fulfillment of prophetic Israel. The modern state of Israel has absolutely nothing to do with Bible prophecy or the second coming of Jesus Christ. And he says nothing in capital letters. The modern state of Zionist Israel is a devilish counterfeit, a fake. And again, from a new covenant perspective, Zionist Israel is the bane of global peace, American prosperity, Christian discernment, and biblical understanding. Wow. This means either one of two things must happen in the near future. One, nothing changes, and America either collapses under the judgment of God from the rot and wickedness within, or disappears under the rubble of a global nuclear war. God intervenes, this is number two, and in grace and mercy upon his new covenant people, deals with Zionist Israel himself. Wow. Some people would say, why would God do that to his chosen people, right? If it's the latter, it would mean the dissolvement of the Zionist government. In my opinion, former U.S. Marine Corps intelligence officer and UN Chief Weapons Inspector Scott Ritter is one of the most geopolitically astute men on the planet today, along with men such as Colonel Douglas McGregor, Jeffrey Sachs, Larry Johnson, Ron Paul, Judge Andrew Napolitano, Paul Craig Roberts, Clayton Morris, Lou Rockwell, and Gerald Celente. Ritter is relentlessly trying to help the American people see through the lies of the mainstream media and Washington propagandists and see the reality of what is actually taking place in our world. Mr. Ritter was recently interviewed by Danny Hafong. I must share some of these significant statements Ritter made in this interview, statements that I believe are prophetically accurate from a new covenant perspective. Scott Ritter here. Israel is in a very difficult situation right now, and the Israelis know it. There's panic in Israel as we speak. In order for Israel, the nation, to exist, it needs to be literally a land of plenty, a land of comfort, and a land of economic success. And to have that, Israel has to live in peace and harmony with its neighbors and to be horizontally and vertically integrated with its neighbors from an economic standpoint. On October the 6th, everybody was talking about normalization of relations. Israel was negotiating normalization with Saudi Arabia. Joe Biden had just gone to the G20, where he bragged about what he called the India Middle East Economic Corridor, which would connect India with Dubai and Dubai with Saudi Arabia by rail through Jordan into Israel, through Haifa into Greece, so that India and Europe are now connected by this corridor. And this is such a big deal that Benjamin Netanyahu himself briefed this during the General Assembly debate in September. Instead of putting up his cartoon figure of the Iranian bomb, he put up a map that showed Israel's role in this. And this is what Israel needed to survive as a nation: peace and prosperity. Israel will never again enjoy peace ever. Wow. They're not going to defeat Hamas. Gaza is a permanent wound. It's not going to be resolved in Israel's favor. Israel is talking about expanding the conflict into southern Lebanon against Hezbollah. Israel cannot win that conflict. I think one of the reasons why Israel hasn't yet launched that invasion is because they were reminded of that fact by Hezbollah, who successfully took out several Iron Dome sites in the vicinity, letting the Israelis know that they can take out all of the Iron Dome sites, and Israel will have no ability to protect itself from tens of thousands of rockets that'll land on Israel fired from Hezbollah on a daily basis. And if you hit Israel with enough rockets over enough period of time, Israel doesn't exist. And the other thing is that Hezbollah isn't going to fight a fight that allows Israel to put 50,000 troops in southern Lebanon to push Hezbollah back to the Litani River. Hezbollah has gone underground just like Hamas did in Gaza. And while Israel is digging and fighting Hezbollah there, Hezbollah will appear in the rear of Israel and take Galilee. Hezbollah will ensure that the next fight between Israel and Hezbollah isn't going to be fought amongst southern Lebanese villages, but amongst the villages and towns of northern Israel. And Hezbollah will win this fight. Israel now knows this. The Houthis have shown that Israel's sea lines of communications are vulnerable and have been successfully interdicted. In fact, there was a story about this today, and the U.S. military has definitely ramped up activity to try to stop the Houthis from doing what they're doing. And Israel has suffered billions of dollars of economic loss as a result. And then these continued attacks from Gaza, from Yemen, from Hezbollah, from Iraq. The pro-Iranian Shia militias are now firing drones and cruise missiles that are striking Haifa. That's the city of Haifa. Bottom line is Israel will never know peace as long as it continues this current stance. The India-Middle East Economic Corridor is finished. It is not going to be revived. The concept of normalization of relations between Israel and its neighbors is ridiculous. Israel has lost the support it enjoyed amongst other nations around the world. In fact, the only nation that unabashedly supports Israel is the United States. Everybody else is turning their back on Israel. Israel has lost the world, which means that if this is not rectified, and it won't be rectified, that millions of Israelis are going to start asking themselves the question, can we continue to live in Israel? Is it the quality of life that we were expecting? Is this a healthy enough economy? Do I want to subject my family to the economic pressures and the psychological pressures of living in a besieged Israeli state? And the answer is no. Millions of Israelis have dual citizenship. They hold second passports. And we've already seen hundreds of thousands of them flee Israel. And if this situation deteriorates, you'll see millions more. And as Israel depopulates, it becomes less and less viable as a nation state, especially in terms of the singular state. Israel is in big trouble. The only thing that's holding Israel up right now is the support of the United States. The United States just passed a resolution that's been voted in favor of by the Security Council. If Israel disregards this, they're going to lose the United States. The United States will have no choice but to move forward and impose some sort of restrictions on Israel. And we can make the following observation. Throughout the modern history of Israel, especially since the Six-Day War in 1967, no Israeli prime minister has been able to remain in power without the support of the United States. And no American president has been able to be elected without the support of the state of Israel. Wow. That's a crazy thing to think about. We have a situation where Joe Biden is probably going to be compelled to decisively act against the state of Israel. And this is going to create tremendous political problems for him here in the United States. And we have a problem for Benjamin Netanyahu that he is going to have to act in a manner which alienates him from the United States at a time when his government is in collapse. And there may be the necessity for re-election. And this is going to damage him politically. So this is a big deal, this resolution. It puts both the United States and Israel, both Biden and Bibi, in a lot of hot water, which only then comes back to the boiling point I was making. None of this promotes stability and peace. All this promotes continued chaos and anarchy. And this will be disruptive to the region, disruptive to Israel, and probably promoting even more Israelis to flee. I don't see Israel lasting the decade. I don't see Israel, as it currently exists, surviving another 10 years. It can't. Its economy will collapse. The political isolation will be real. As you move forward with a two-state solution, that only works if both states are viable. But as Israel depopulates, remember, if Israel is compelled to move forward towards a two-state solution, there's going to be big problems. There's going to be a lot of Israelis that say, we don't want to live in a two-state solution. They'll just leave. The other thing is you have a bunch of West Bank settlers in there who have stolen land that they're going to have to be evicted. That is another guaranteed outcome from this. The settlers cannot be allowed to remain in any construct that is Palestinian land. If the Israelis move against those West Bank settlers, there's going to be a crisis of confidence inside Israel. Again, those settlers aren't going to say, okay, we're just going to stay in Israel. These are Brooklyn Jews who fled the United States knowing they were going to steal land and stay there. These are people who don't believe in hard work. They don't believe in earning anything. They're thieves, they're thugs, they're murderers, they're bandits. And when they lose their settlements, they're going to go back to where they came from, the United States or Australia or Canada or Europe. They're not staying. Israel is going to depopulate and lose its most fervent Zionistic elements, which means that the Israelis that stay behind are going to be those Israelis who are conditioned to the understanding that Israel has to live peacefully with their Palestinian neighbors, which means that the Zionist entity, this Zionist experiment, is finished, and that whatever emerges from this isn't going to be called the State of Israel. It's going to be called the State of Palestine. Wow. And hopefully it will incorporate a significant Jewish population. Of course, a significant Muslim population and a significant Christian population. The current population of Palestine is going to have to come together and learn to live together. So Chuck Baldwin says here, I hope you didn't read over Scott's words too quickly. I tried not to. If you did, go back and read them again. I believe what Ritter said is truth, and although Ritter may not understand the scriptural significance of what he said, his words are lining up with genuine New Covenant teaching. Sometimes the unchurched have a better instinctive grasp of spiritual truths than church-going people who call themselves Christians, especially if they are going to Christian Zionist churches. Of course, this is interesting here, folks. If Donald Trump regains the White House, he is an even bigger Zionist than Biden and would do his best to save the Zionist regime, even at the cost of the welfare of the United States. Does anybody remember Jared Kushner? But if the collapse of Zionist Israel, as described by Ritter above, is the inevitable work of Almighty God for the sake of Christ and his new covenant, there will be nothing Trump can do to stop it. In fact, God may choose to deal with ultra-Zionist Donald Trump at the same time. We'll see, won't we? All I am sure of is that for the message of Christ's new covenant to have a rebirth of preeminence in the pulpits of America, heaven must deal with the hellish Zionist state of Israel. If Scott Ritter is accurate in his political analysis, and I am right in my spiritual analysis of Israel's genocidal war against Gaza, heaven might be already working on the matter. So that's Pastor Chuck Baldwin, who is a radio broadcaster, syndicated columnist, also dedicated to preserving historic principles upon which America was founded. And I'm probably going to go watch that sermon that he did yesterday. So again, some serious food for thought. I'm not going to say much more. I know there are people here who support Israel because they believe it's a biblical mandate, and their theology, which I believe is a poor interpretation of what was said in the Old Testament and trying to transfer it into the New Covenant. Baldwin talks about that here. A lot of people, though, are still leaning on that. And I would say probably 70 to 80% of churches here in the United States are pro-Zionist, I will say, or kind of neutral, but sort of pro-Zionist. And those that have begun to wake up are churches that are more reformed in their theology, more traditional in their theology, and they understand that some of this stuff, this dispensational heresy, is just wasn't there. It just didn't exist like 150 years ago, and it took a while, but that's why everybody says now, hey, this was a miracle. Israel returned to that land. Who's to say it wasn't all of that propaganda and a misreading, which caused Christian Zionism to go along with, regular Zionism. So good people can disagree on this. I think this is crucial, though, to the future of both countries. That is so weird, though, that, if you don't support Israel, you're not going to be elected president of the United States. Or if you're in Israel and you're not supporting the United States, you're not going to be elected. So those two things going together is not good, because this is why we continue to send money and weapons to Israel. And if you are worried about the people of Hamas sending weapons to Israel, right, and killing more people in the Gaza Strip, that I don't know how that's a Christian virtue. I don't get it. I mean, not to be really cliche here, but who would Jesus bomb? Who would Jesus attack? Right? Jesus would have turned the other cheek early on and tried to negotiate and talk with people. I know in certain circumstances that's very hard to do, but it's the right thing to do. And based on what Pastor Baldwin is saying here and Scott Ritter, Israel may not have a lot of time left. And a lot of people think it's the other way around with Hamas. So we shall see. I think Israel is kind of boxed in a corner. All right. I said I wasn't going to talk too much at the end. Unfortunately, I did. Thanks for watching this. I think it's important. Go read this over on LouRockwell.com. I would share this with your Christian friends. And of course, they're going to say, hey, Israel is God's chosen people. And that's going to open up a huge can of worms. And maybe you can direct them over to Chuck Baldwin's website, where he has sermons dedicated to this, as do others. We had a pastor on here who was really fantastic on this, and you can go back and watch him. I may have him on again in light of this, because this was kind of a bombshell article as far as I'm concerned. So see you all soon. Thanks for watching.